Back on Ball State All Access and BallStateSports.com again today. Brady, Sallee, and Joel Cadet, glad to have you along with us. And hey, you got Buffalo this week, so figured we would make them feel as close to home as possible.
They must feel like they're in their own living room with this weather. So good thing we play an indoor sport, huh?
They're coming though, right?
Well, I haven't heard anything different, so we're preparing for them. I'm sure they're used to this kind of stuff. Don't know whether they're flying or driving, but we hope that they have a safe travel first of all. But we're preparing for them no matter what.
7 o'clock on Wednesday, the Cardinals will take on Buffalo inside Worthen Arena. We'll get to the Bulls here in just a little bit. But the week that was for you guys, you're now 2-1 in conference. You took one on the chin like we've talked about on the radio show, and then you came back and you dealt one out the same way. Two 25-point games. And I guess at the end of it, do you feel all right because you learned something from your losses? You clearly applied that to the win. Where was the greater good that came from it all?
Well, do I feel all right? What coach does feel all right in the middle of the season? Because you're worrying about your team, you're worrying about what's coming and everything in between. But clearly, we didn't like the way we played against Ohio. But at the end of the day, it's one game. It's a tough place to play. It's a top 50 RPI game. The results just never matter to us, really. It's how we play, and we didn't feel good about the way we played. We came out and took care of it in practice the next day, and it didn't matter who that next opponent was going to be. We were going to play different. We were going to look different. Proud of my kids for the way they came out and the intensity they played with and how they played on the defensive end. Even though we weren't real sharp offensively, I like the fact that we were defensive-minded that game, played off our defense, and ended up getting it to a pretty easy win on Saturday.
How suffocating was that defense?
Well, I would kind of equate it to drowning in the shallow end. When you're underwater, it's really tough, but all we had to do was stand up, and we would have been fine. But for some reason, we just kind of kept ourselves underwater. And, Ohio gives a lot of people fits with the way they defend, all the switches, the toughness that they play with. Really impressed with their toughness, and that team just looks like a team that knows how to win big games and isn't nervous on that stage at all.
Do you think the team grew from the standpoint of getting up for a big game? And next time they're on that stage, you've got Ohio again coming into your building in a week or so, or about 2 weeks or so. Do you think they had the realization to say, all right, we can do this, and we don't have to necessarily have the same reaction we had again?
You hope so, but I guess we won't know until January 30th when Ohio comes in here, and that'll be a real test for us. For us, the goal has always been the same, be playing at our best come March. If this helps us get over a hurdle that maybe we didn't even know we had, so be it, and maybe when we get to Cleveland, it will make us a tougher and better team.
We'll get to the physicality thing in a second because I want to get to that as it relates to one in particular player. But let me turn the page to Miami really quickly as well, and obviously a very different game, and you kind of turned to the page defensively too because you guys were the team that was really applying the pressure on that side.
Yeah, we came out and on purpose we pressed, and my goal was to press the whole game regardless because I wanted to force us to play a certain way. So it really had very little to do with Miami or the way Miami was handling it. We were going to play that 94-foot style to force our kids to play hard and not think. One of the beauties of the press is that if you don't play with that intensity, you're going to get run off the floor. And so our kids knew what my mindset was. They knew they had to play and had to play really, really hard. And it ended up really affecting Miami negatively, and it turned into a lot of offense for us and really ended up affecting the game. And when you go back and you watch the game, we did a lot of really good things in the press. We had some breakdowns in it, but the best thing we did was force the tempo to be played the way we wanted it to be played. And usually when the game goes that way, we're in pretty good shape.
Two people that had pretty good weeks for you as well. We talked about one last week, had another good one, and that's Franny Frazier, who continues to be a go-to. You use the word energy, but energy source off the bench.
Right.
And then Renee Bennett, who has rounded back into form or just become that player you need her to be?
Well, starting with Franny, she's had a few good consistent games here where she comes in and, the numbers aren't always gaudy, but they're very consistent across the board. Their points, their rebounds, their steals. She makes things happen, sometimes it's a fork in a microwave and it might blow up and spark, but at the end of the day,
it's a spark.
There's something going to be happening and it's going to get your attention. And I think our kids play off of her. And we found a few things that we can call for to kind of get her going a little bit. So it's been good, and she's been a great sixth man for us. And then you're talking about another sixth man who really is like another starter in Renee Bennett. There's a young lady that had struggled, coming off the injury. She was a little bit unsure of things, and she'll tell you, played horribly down at Ohio, didn't like anything about it. She and I had a long conversation on Friday. She came out and practiced a lot better, and you saw a real focus shift in what she was doing, and she kind of got really quiet. But really intense with everything she was doing in practice. She came out and played the same way and let her play speak volumes for her game.
Natalie Fontaine, over the last couple of games, has 31 points and I think off the top of my head 20 rebounds, which that's pretty darn good. But Natalie is now at the point where you're going, what the heck's wrong? People are game planning specifically to take her away, and it's very physical. How has she handled it, and how do you continue to combat that so that she continues to have nights like that and or better?
Well, it's a shame what she has to play through, to be honest with you, especially the emphasis in the rules says that you can't play the way that teams are playing, but for some reason it hasn't quite found its way into conference play. And out of conference, it was called like it should be. And so I would imagine that that's all going to catch up and play out in the long run, but disappointed with what they're allowing to happen to Natalie. And the problem is she plays through it. It doesn't seem to affect her. She doesn't go flailing. She doesn't look awkward. She takes a beating and still goes straight up and gets it to the rim. Well, a lot of times they don't call those fouls, and then you'll see some kid that doesn't even make a scouting report fall over and get the same call. And that's disappointing. But again, you got to play through it. You can't get caught up in it. And a little bit different maybe than in the past is I'm letting her play through it. I'm letting her figure it out because I think she can. I think our team can. In the past, I'd have been whining and crying and screaming and yelling for every single call. Well, I just think we're better than that, and we can play through some of that stuff. And that's what we did against Miami, and that's what we had to do against Toledo, and that's what we should have done against Ohio. But that's just kind of what we're going to see. And getting the semester started again, getting our male practice players back will help because we can kind of simulate some of that a little bit better than what we have been. But Natalie's become used to it. It's really the only way to stop her. So she's that level of a player, and we're going to have to get used to playing with three people around her and just taking cheap shots and pushing and shoving and the whole bit, and not really get caught up in whether we're getting a whistle or not.
With a really good night, Natalie can move past Kate Endress on Wednesday night for second all-time in scoring as well, and that leads us to Buffalo. Talk defense again. That's what they do. That's kind of been their calling card since Felicia Leggett-Jack has taken over, and they always make it difficult and kind of try to muck it up for you.
Yeah, Felicia's teams have become known for that defensive toughness part of it. They play like she coaches, very intense, and they understand that toughness wins games. And it's interesting to see this year's team really off to a better start than her previous teams, even though they lost everybody. I think they returned maybe a sophomore point guard, and they returned a kid off the bench who's now their leading scorer, but she's done a tremendous job of keeping the ball rolling with this basketball team, and even maybe being a better product than she's had in her first few years. But they haven't changed their style. They make it really difficult on you with some matchup zone stuff, some switching man. But no matter what they're in, it's physical. They're going to wall you off in the post. They're going to walk through your shooters in the paint and try to really play a physical brand. I have a lot of respect for that because I kind of believe the game should be played the same way. So, she's done, like I said, a tremendous job. You've got two 10-4 teams tipping it up Wednesday night. Two teams, I think they're in the top 90 RPI. We're in the top 60 RPI. It's a high-level basketball game, and that's the way conference play should be.
They were 26th at one point when they started 6-0 as well, so that is a feather in their cap. Tell me about Joanna Smith. Comes off the bench for him last year, now in the starting role, and I mean, just dropping points.
Yeah, dynamic and athletic, and what makes her tough is, one, she shoots a real jump shot from everywhere, so she elevates, and then you take her athleticism and her ability to really make shots. Well, now you got to get up and press on her, which is going to give her some dribble drive opportunities, and she's athletic enough to get in there. And she's a better passer than I think people give her credit for. They look at her and say, well, she's scoring a ton. Well, she's distributing too. So, she's playing like an all-conference guard, and we're going to have our hands full. But again, players like that, they're going to get theirs. You kind of look at like the Natalies, and well, they're going to get theirs. You've got to do a good enough job on everybody else. But this game comes down to the same thing that all of our games do, and it's going to be won between those blocks and in the paint.
Brady, appreciate it. Looking forward to it Wednesday. And then Bowling Green, you guys go on the road on Saturday, but I'm not going to go there because I know that I just told you now that you have Bowling Green, so we'll leave it at that.
First time I knew that. Yeah. But we're looking forward to playing Wednesday night. Great crowd the other night when we were at home against Miami, and we've got to have that ball rolling for us, but we appreciate the community and hope they come out and keep supporting us.
Put on the snowshoes. We'll see you at Worthen Arena on Wednesday night. We'll see you back here next week off the court with Brady Sallee.